10,000 foreign students in Canada face instant deportation. The Canadian government has discovered a shocking 10,000 students used fraudulent acceptance letters to gain admission into Canadian colleges and universities in the year 2024 alone, according to the Globe and Mail report. Imagine that number for a second, 10,000 in 1 year. How are these people getting past the Canadian immigration system? What about previous years, 2023, 2022, and onward, or should I say backward? Anyways, why now though? Why are they just discovering this now? Because it seems to me someone or some people willingly turned a blind eye to allow this to happen. According to reports, this discovery happened because Canadians, rightly, have been mounting pressure on the government to deal with the unchecked immigration policies of the Trudeau government, which has caused so many problems in the country, not only for Canadians and permanent residents, but also for foreign students and other temporary immigrants. Anyways, following the vigorous complaints from Canadians, and of course because of the poor standing of the Trudeau Liberal government in the polls in the next federal election, the government decided to get off their behinds and do something. The ministry responsible for immigration, the IRCC, at long last decided to intensify scrutiny of international students' applications. When they reviewed about 500,000 documents under stricter verification measures, they quickly discovered that there's a staggering underground exploitation of the foreign student program. Shockingly, media reports indicate that 80% of these fake letters were linked to students from Gujarat and Punjab in India. That's about 8,000 of these fake acceptance letters was from just one country. To be certain, this problem is not new. It's been brewing for some time now. This heavy focus on the irregularities in the foreign students program comes in the wake of a 2023 scandal as well, where many international students unknowingly, I repeat, unknowingly arrived in Canada with fraudulent acceptance letters issued by unlicensed consultants in India, placing these students at risk of deportation and losing out on their studies. After that incident, the government should have acted sooner to protect the international student program for the sake of Canadians as well as for the sake of the thousands of hardworking, genuine students who come here from all over the world to study here. But they didn't until the prospect of their defeat in the next election becomes so apparent. In any case, these developments have resulted in Canada's reputation as a land of opportunity, particularly for students taking a severe hit. A recent CBC report shows that Canada is losing skilled immigrants faster than we did in the last decade. That's staggering because we need all the help we can get given the obvious concern of our aging population. And then this happened. Thousands of foreign students, primarily from India, now face deportation after falling victim to an elaborate scam involving fake admission letters. For someone who is an immigrant like myself, watching this story unfold has been both heartbreaking and infuriating. It's a glaring example of how flawed immigration policies and systems have not only failed newcomers, but have also damaged Canada's standing as a global hub of education. Now, let's unpack what this means for everyone involved and how we got here. The students caught in this scandal are victims of a system that has failed them at every turn. In their home countries, unscrupulous agents and education consultants prey on their aspirations and inexperience, promising a brighter future in Canada in exchange for tens of thousands of dollars. Families often sell land, houses, they drain life savings or take high interest loans to pay for what they believe is a legitimate path to higher education. So when that dream turns out to be based on a lie, the emotional and financial toll is devastating. These are people who do not have much to begin with. People do not realize how damaging it is to uproot oneself, take the risk of moving to another country. For sure, that's your choice if you decide to do that, but it is not the choice of these students to be duped by scammers in their country and worse, unprotected by the Canadian immigration system, which should have caught this discrepancy from the onset. But that's not where the exploitation ends, is it? Once these students arrive in Canada, the exploitation doesn't stop. Many are funneled into private colleges, which charge them very high tuition fees, often 2 to 5 times what domestic students pay. Some programs charge international students as high as $25,000, while their domestic counterparts pay less than $7,000 in some cases. These institutions, eager to profit from the influx of international students, perhaps deliberately, rarely vet their applications thoroughly. Instead, they rely on middlemen or middlewomen who prioritize volume over quality. There's no way such system will not be abused. For any sensible or right-thinking government, the current scandal should have been predicted and avoided. Now, I'm not saying that all the students involved in this scandal are totally blameless. I'm sure some of them knew exactly what they were doing, but for the majority of them, they were completely blindsided. This is not their fault. The fault is that of the system that failed them both in their home country and in Canada. For me, what's important to note is that this crisis isn't happening in a vacuum. It's a direct consequence of government's immigration policies, which have prioritized quantity over quality over time. Unfortunately, this has caused many problems in Canada. For example, this unchecked influx of international students has strained an already tight housing market. Rents in cities like Toronto and Vancouver, and many other cities for that matter, have skyrocketed, forcing many students into overcrowded and unsafe living conditions. This isn't just a student problem. Canadians across the board are feeling the pinch as affordable housing becomes increasingly scarce. Then there is the issue of job scarcity. Many international students take on part-time jobs to support themselves, competing with domestic workers for limited opportunities. In industries like food service and retail, this has created a surplus of labor, driving down wages and worsening job scarcity for everyone. The demand for resources, housing, food, transportation has contributed to rising costs, further straining the budgets of Canadians and newcomers alike. International students already burdened by high tuition fees often bear the brunt of these rising expenses. And then consider the damage to Canada's reputation. This scandal risks tarnishing Canada's image as a trustworthy destination for international education. Students and families worldwide may have to think twice before investing in a Canadian education, fearing that they too could be victims of fraud and exploitation. They may fear that they will not get what they were promised on applying to come to Canada to study. Now, there are those applauding this deportation. In some sense, rightly so. But the deportation of these students isn't just a tragedy for them. It's a failure for Canada. These are young people who came here with the dream of building a better future, only to be treated as collateral damage in a broken system. We can also argue that deporting them en masse is not a solution. It's a punishment for an infraction they didn't commit, at least most of them. For sure, they are responsible for their actions, but I wonder if there is something that can be done to ameliorate their suffering. Some have suggested that the government consider offering amnesty to verified victims of this scam. Those who are actually known to be victims. Students who can prove that they were genuinely deceived should be allowed to stay, complete their studies, and then go back home afterward, or if possible, transition to permanent residency if they meet the criteria. Deportation only compounds the harm that these students have already suffered. Of course, all those who knowingly obtain visa through fraudulent means should be deported. Secondly, what about the scammers who deceived these students? They should be held accountable, both in Canada and abroad. Those responsible for this scam must be identified and prosecuted to prevent this from happening again. And this should include the shady education consultants, private colleges prioritizing profits over ethics, and any Canadian official who turned a blind eye to this problem, because they are part of the problem. The government is taking steps to reform the education system, and I do applaud them for those efforts, even though it may seem to be coming too late. They should tighten regulation on private colleges and require more rigorous vetting of the international students programs. Collaboration between Canadian institutions and immigration authorities must be strengthened to prevent fraudulent admissions. There must be an improved immigration oversight. The IROCC must increase its capacity to scrutinize applications thoroughly. It is obvious that the IROCC is overburdened and overstretched because of the unprecedented applications they have to deal with. The department must be fully supported through funding and proper level of staffing to protect the integrity of Canada's immigration. There is no way around this. If Canada is to quickly salvage its reputation, the government must act decisively to address not only the immediate crisis but also the systemic issues that allowed this to happen. Failing to do so risks long-term damage to our economy, our education sector, and Canada's global image as a place of reputable international education. This scandal is a stark reminder that no one benefits from a broken immigration system. The question now is whether the government will rise to the occasion or let another generation of students fall through the cracks. The world is definitely watching. Thank you for watching Minority Media. Please take a moment to subscribe to this channel, like and share this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.